Hey, welcome back to World Entertainment and the review for episode 3 of Alien Earth. And this episode is called Metamorphosis. Does it actually push the story well forward and stuff? No, not particularly. Is it any good? Does it change how they filmed the first two episodes? It definitely changed how they filmed the first two episodes. We didn't get any of that stupid kind of flashy scenes while it's, somebody's explaining something. But what they did with it was god-awful. This episode is horrible. Absolutely horrible. It's slow, it's boring, nothing happens, and my god do they pack it with filler just to pull out the episode to be an hour long for a streaming service, because you get not one, not two, but multiple scenes of characters lying down doing nothing. So of course, the end of episode 2, the Xenomorph finally captured Joe, and Wendy's going to look for him. Well, she's down there, and she finds him in a container, and he's screaming out, it's a trap. She still ignores that and goes into the container, and this is the first time we've actually seen a Xenomorph do what a Xenomorph is meant to do, which is starting to cocoon him, that he is stuck to the wall. However, she easily gets him out of it, and as they turn around, the Xenomorph is at the door of the container, but it's got those plastic strip things down, and you kind of see its silhouette. It has Joe and Wendy dead to rights. And remember, we've already been shown that this thing just randomly tears people apart and can do so to multiple people within seconds. Well, the Xenomorph pokes its head in, looks at the two of them in a dead end. They're trapped, they can't go anywhere. And it decides, nah, I read the script, mate. I need to go on top of the container for no reason. And that's exactly what it does. It jumps up on top of the container. She takes the sword, but it's not actually a sword. It's just a blade off a cutting board for, papers, for art class and stuff. It's one of them. And she stabs it through the ceiling of the container, which stabs the Xenomorph. And of course, this is when they find out, oh look, it's got acid for blood, which immediately starts tearing away at the container. It hits the container over. Wendy somehow vanishes out of the container. Joe picks up a hook, because this thing is nothing but Peter Pan references. And now he's got a hook. He's walking out. Xenomorph shows up, stabs him with his tail, throws him out, and then Wendy shows up with the hook. And by the way, once again, Xenomorph just doesn't kill Joe because plot armor, I suppose. But it's standing over him, it's opening its mouth, the inner jaw comes out. And then Wendy grabs the Xenomorph by the inner jaw with the hook. Now we've also get to see the Xenomorph not act like the Xenomorph we've seen it act like, which is, out of everything it's done, including how it just got Joe out of the container, it used its tail. That we're being really shown that the tail of this thing is lethal. Until again we get a character with plot armor, because all of a sudden Xenomorph doesn't want to use its tail. Yeah, so she's able to pull it off Joe. And oh, by the way, there is another issue with this Xenomorph that clearly shows Noah Hawley doesn't understand the whole makeup of a Xenomorph. We know now that he doesn't understand that they're not a killing machine. They basically take you to continue the life cycle. He has this one purposely, and he's spoken about this recently, that he wanted to be different, so it always moves on all fours. That's an issue, being the fact that it only does that providing it gestated from something that walks on all fours. Now, they could have done that if it had come from the cat, but it didn't. So, where did it come from? Nothing was shown that it came from an animal, so why is this thing walking on all fours? But Wendy pulls it over to a big door, tells Joe to shut the door, and as it does, now it decides to use its tail and grab Wendy and pull her in there with it. Joe's like, oh no, and then can't get the door back open. And he hotwires it. We hear bish bash bong, and you instantly know, well, Wendy's winning this battle. And of course she does. Door opens. Xenomorph is decapitated. She cut his Xenomorph's head off with an art blade. Yeah, a chopping board blade, basically. That should have also been destroyed because all the acid ran down the entire blade. So, figure that one out. But she's standing there and a bit of white blood comes down her face and she just drops. And then Joe drops beside her. So, now we got our first scene of people lying down as the camera's just very slowly panning out so we can see a decapitated Xenomorph whose blood all of a sudden isn't burning through floors. We see Wendy lying there and we see Joe half dead lying beside her. To then later on we get to see them being very slowly, with all the specimens, being wheeled on gurneys for a scene that felt like it took about 5 minutes. But of course, while all that's happening, what happens? Well, the black kid, who's obviously now in the adult body, shows up to the Indian kid and they start farting about where the eggs are and start messing with the eggs. But then the cyborg shows up and he instantly clicks that there's something off about these two because of the way they're acting. He's like, you're acting like children. And he's like, what kind of synthetics are you? And he downloads all the information and then deletes it, which makes no sense, being the fact that Prodigy Corporation now already has all the information of what this ship is, thanks to Tim the Elephant. By the way, all of a sudden they're in the lab and they have all the specimens, well, just about all specimens in jars and stuff. It's like, how exactly did you manage that already? Don't know, but they do. And the red-headed girl, she's still freaking out over the eyeball one, the whatever it's called, Teocellus I think it is. But he shows up and saves them two from the cyborg, who the eggs start opening at him because he's also half human, and he jumps away. But he did something to the Indian kid first, which is this little round flat skin disc thing came out of his finger and he stuck it to his neck. He made it look like he was choking him, but he actually stuck this thing to his neck and asked him a riddle of when is a machine not a machine. And those two kids get questioned later by the weird old English dude that's with Boy Cavalier. The majority of the next few scenes is just watching them wheel the specimens in, and Joe and Wendy. And again, that scene takes for like 5 minutes of just watching things getting wheeled on gurneys. You're like, wow. Then we get to watch moments of Wendy just being put into the bed thing that lights up to fix her for a good few minutes. We see Joe getting operated on. So you're just watching people lying down for the majority. The scientist dude who spoke with Wendy about his low sperm count for some reason in the previous episode, he's starting to question Boy Cavalier as to, like, why would he send these out there? You know, they're experimental, they're not fully formed, blah blah blah. Why would he do that? And then Boy Cavalier comes in and he refuses to say it to his face because they don't want to get fired. But Boy Cavalier ends up having a conversation. Oh, by the way, he's been a conversation with Timothy Oliphant when he's telling him, I want all the specimens off that ship, and asks, like, where's Wendy? And he goes, she's gone off to find her brother. And he goes, you sent her on her own? And he goes, no, I sent whatever the Indian kid's name is. And he goes, he's a child. And all I'm sitting there going, dumb shit. They're all kids. All of them. What are you talking about? He's a child. You can't go with Wendy. He's only a kid. They're all kids, including Wendy. Wendy's the oldest one at the tender age of 12. So what this is, I don't know. Then the red-headed girl is kind of getting jealous and all the Peter Pan references come out again. She's like, how come we didn't get to choose our names? Why did it have to be Peter Pan? Why is Wendy? And then she's like, why are we the lost boys? We're not all boys. All that type of stuff. The black-haired girl, she ends up having a weird conversation, like a proper weird conversation with Boy Cavalier about she wants to be his favourite. Yeah, she's like jealous that Wendy's the favourite, but she wants to be the favourite. And she thinks she can be better than Boy Cavalier, and she wants to grow up to be better than him and all this type of crap. And They started to hint at how they could evolve these things because she says she learned French last week, that she downloaded the program and she learned French. So he gives her books and audio and something else to review. And then they could come back. And he doesn't say you can come back and we'll talk or anything. He says you can come back and we will play. It's like, that's weird. It's also a creepy conversation to be having with a kid. Now, a couple of the things they have answered for us that we were kind of going, is this the case? One, is Joe actually also synthetic? No, he is fully human. Two, is Boy Cavalier actually a synthetic? No, that seems to be getting shown that he isn't either, because he walks into the room where they have brought the eggs to Timothy Oliphant, and the egg, he gets close to the egg and the egg starts opening, and Timmy Oliphant pushes him out of the room, says you can't be here because it senses you. And the only realistic decision Cavalier makes at that moment is, okay, lock this down, only synths allowed, which made sense. However, how did all these human people manage to get all of these eggs and get them onto the ships to come back to Prodigy or Neverland Island? Which, by the way, for some reason they brought all of the people back, like including the search and rescue people who you think would have all been dead. They're not, they're all fine. They all came as well for some reason. But that would prove that he's human, or at least possibly half human. And what was the other question that they had that they actually answered in this? Oh yes, was Morrow, the cyborg, did he purposely crash the ship and sabotage and stuff? No is the answer to that. He is not actually working with Prodigy. He is very much working with Weyland-Yutani, and he does say we were sabotaged. He didn't say I sabotaged it. He said the ship was sabotaged. Somebody sabotaged the ship. Every indication for that would be it was the weird, creepy, staring at the girl Asian dude in the first episode, because we didn't see his body. And you know, you're not going to have a character like that be weird like that and that not lead to something. So it was probably him. He's probably alive somewhere on this ship. But overall, then Morrow's able to get in contact with Weyland-Yutani, more so Yutani, and of course he's like, who's this? And she goes, this Yutani. He goes, and she goes, oh, you obviously dealt with my grandmother who sadly passed. I'm in charge now. Because again, they've been out there for 65 years. And she kind of says, like, you should have read your contract. And he goes, oh yeah, I understand the contract. Because he's saying, I've lost everybody. You know, I've nothing left except these specimens. This is my life's work. And he doesn't care about that. He's lost his family and all. He even said he had a kid. And he doesn't care. So she wants him to just come back to Weyland-Yutani, and they'll go from there to try and get the specimens back. And he's like, no, they're my life's work. I'll get them back. And that's his conversation with her. He then manages to, that little thing he stuck on the Indian guy's neck is some sort of communication, because he's able to contact him and talk to him in his head. And he says something to him that the kid said earlier, which was, oh, everybody needs a friend. So he's like, oh, will you be my friend? Do you promise, please? And he's like, okay. By the way, this guy is ringing this kid who's probably about 8 or 9, and he's phoning him from a fetish bar. So the imagery for some of this is a bit off when you're like, oh, you have an adult in a fetish bar talking and trying to get close to a child. Yeah, not a good look, Disney. Really not a good look. But Wendy wakes back up. Her brother, by the way, they're operating on. They remove one of his lungs for reasons best known to themselves. They inflate it and put it in the jar. Timothy Oliphant and 2 of the other kids are operating on one of the eggs. They cut the side off it. They take out the face hugger. It attacks them. They knock it out. Manage to operate on it somehow. You know, how did the acid not destroy any of the gear? Don't know, but they managed to operate on it. Remove what appears to be a baby Xenomorph, so it doesn't appear that they drop eggs into it. They drop actual parasitic versions of the Xenomorph, but they removed that. But while all that's happening, Wendy had woken up and she's walking around the whole facility. By the way, we've also now been told that everything is getting recorded through their eyes. So how nobody notices that Wendy has woken up, got up, and is walking about this facility, don't know. But she's hearing and sensing everything that's happening to this xenomorph that they're pulling out of the facehugger. So every time they're pulling at it or something, she ends up in pain. She walks into a room that's meant to be locked down, and here's the funny thing, because she presses the keypad thing and it lights up red, which would indicate that it's locked, that she can't get in. And then it just opens up. She walks through that door, opens up the next door, walks into the lab. All three of them don't notice that she's there. They pull out the xenomorph thing and she collapses onto the floor. Here's the catch. We then go to seeing Timothy Oliphant putting that xenomorph thing into a little jar, walks into the room where Joe's lung is and drop it into the tank with the lung, and we see it going into the lung. And then we go back to seeing Wendy lying on the floor, as once again we very slowly zoom out of someone lying down again, and that's where it ends, playing Metallica Wherever I May Roam. For some reason all these episodes end with music from bands. The first one was Black Sabbath, the second episode was Tool, and now we got Metallica. And it completely takes you out of the show. But it's like, wait a minute. For you to get that xenomorph thing out of that room and to the lab where the lung is, you have to walk over Wendy. Why has nobody noticed that Wendy is lying on the floor? I don't know. It's so stupid. The episode was stupid. It was boring. It was slow. The xenomorph is basically a guest star, you know. Well, I say he. They even called it a she in the first or second episode. It's like, okay, why wouldn't you just be calling it? But they called it a she. That thing got destroyed and decapitated in a matter of a few seconds, and then the rest of the episode you're just watching people basically lie down with big, long, slow camera zoom outs. And it's like, wow, you are really just trying to fill in the time for streaming services, for watch minutes. It's like ridiculous. So overall, an absolutely garbage episode. And if you're rocky on the first two episodes, this episode ain't gonna do it for you. And next week's episode, we're halfway into the season. It's so far, it's not a good show, and I don't think it's gonna pick up. If anything, it's probably gonna get dumber and even more worse. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. So overall, that's my thoughts on this episode. So if you've seen it, let us know what you think of it. And with that, I shall leave it there for this one. So like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Cheers, and I'll catch you in the next one.